Hey everybody, Eshin here with my good friend Jacoby, and we're going to sort of continue the conversation that I've been having for these past couple of sessions with folks in regards to mental health, in regards to spiritual practice and self-care. And Jacoby came on to sort of talk to us about what does it mean within the realm of self-care and travel, and what does that look like, and sort of his practice and sort of his day to day. Um, Jacoby, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. First I just want to say, E, thank you for having me on your platform. This is actually my first time ever doing something like this, so please give me grace if I don't answer the questions in the right format.
I think you're gonna do fine. You're gonna do
I,
fine.
I think so too, but I just want to get that in case I messed up. But thank you again for having me on here. A little bit about myself. My name is Jacoby. Jacoby Young. I am an attorney out here in Houston, and I currently practice civil litigation law, and I travel a lot.
How did we meet, Jacoby?
We met, I believe, at a conference one time in Vermont.
Hmm. And I'm curious, like when you came to Vermont, like what were your impressions and senses about Vermont?
I still to this day tell people Vermont is one of the greatest states on the East Coast and actually
You
probably
do?
the greatest state in the country. Yes, I love Vermont. I said my long-term goal is to buy me a home in Vermont. Um, what I love about Vermont is not just its beauty, natural beauty, that I still feel can rival places like Colorado, California, and Arizona, but the people. One thing that I loved about Vermont is that I feel like I learned how to be a good person when I moved to Vermont. And I always tell people, if you ever want to be a good person, move to Vermont. Uh, and it stood out to me a lot living in Vermont, especially as someone who was Black. I'll never forget, and I tell this story all the time, is I got invited to a housewarming party during Christmas time, okay? And it was in Barnard, Vermont, and it was a friend named Ray. And I went to the party. I had bought a dish, slipped and fell in the driveway. This lady came out, helped me, or whatever. I was sitting down at a table. It was a table probably about 12 people. They had the food all coming out and was just sitting down. And we were talking and was conversing. I was the only Black guy there. And then I said, "Where's Ray?" And everybody said, "Who?" They said Ray. And I said, for the housewarming party. I was at the wrong house in the wrong party. Okay. And then so I sat there and I was like, it was awkward. And it was like, I said, oh my God, I was freaking out. And I'm like, they was like, no, you can stay. You can stay. You do that anywhere else in the country. Somebody will shoot you. Okay. And then so I walked over and I told, and Ray was like, "You were like an hour later." I'm like, shit, I was sitting over at your neighbor's house eating chicken. But to say that, those interactions and just how it went, you cannot find that anywhere else in
Mhm.
what a place like Vermont. And that's what I say. I still to this day, I love Vermont and I always plan on coming back to Vermont.
Oh, nice. I love that story. As awkward as that may have felt, may have been and embarrassing. And I think it talks about I'm hearing like, yeah, connecting with people, being really nice. Yeah, eat some of my chicken. Completely fine.
Yeah. And then just some people you can when they say you could stay, but I wasn't treated any different. And
Yeah.
context coming from the South, I was raised in Florida. Both of my parents are from Alabama. So I visit, Atlanta, Birmingham, and all those areas. And then so there's a lot of conversations about things in which you should and should not do. And and you feel it sometimes when you go certain places as a minority. Living in Vermont, I didn't feel those things, personally. And I'm not saying those things do not happen. I want to make that perfectly clear. But it was just a great experience and just the way people treat each other in Vermont and the community that and I always call myself a Vermonte. When people ask me where I grew up from, I'll always say Florida and Vermont because I feel like all the great things that happened to me in my life and the transition that got me where I am today here in Houston as an attorney happened in Vermont. So I grew up in Vermont.
Nice. Nice. So where was the last place that you traveled to?
San Francisco. I went there as a form of self-care. Recently my birthday was not too long ago, and me and my
Hmm.
mom were here, very similar birthdays. I'm August 8th, she's August 6th. So
Aw.
comments for us to say, okay, we pick a destination and we do whatever we do. Well, this year wasn't my destination to pick. So we went to Martha's Vineyard and we went to Maine. And Martha's Vineyard is a whole conversation. It wasn't really my vibe, but you do anything for your mom. And you know, I said, okay, I need to do something for myself. And so I purchased a trip to San Francisco. I've always wanted to go to San Francisco. I remember watching That's So Raven. I don't know if you watched that growing up. That's So Raven, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Full House, all those shows. And I just always been just attracted to the architecture, the history, and just it being a culinary destination. And me as a foodie, I love food and I love traveling and experiencing new cuisine. So I was excited to go to San Francisco. And so I booked that. And I think that is important when you're talking about self-care, is to do things, in my own definition, what self-care means is to honor yourself
Mm,
and
mm,
do what, and realize that what you're doing is for you at that.
mm,
And that
mm.
has been one of the biggest things for me in self-care.
That's huge. I think some people would be like, oh, I don't want to be selfish, or oh, maybe I, will save up money for something else, and
Mhm.
but the idea of like you're doing something for you and your birthday, right? I mean, your
Right,
mom's birthday. Um, that flipping that idea of like self-care, is sort of like a self-growth kind of thing where you sort of
right,
are
right,
also recharging too, right?
right, right. I think, when you talked about people looking at it as selfish, I look at it as a form of compassion and a form of medicine,
Mm,
specifically. And I do, I mean, it depends on how we treat the word selfish. If we make the word selfish a dirty word, it becomes,
mm,
but if we make it also a positive word, it also becomes positive. Me looking selfish as a positive thing, not in the context of, well, there's 5 cookies in a house and there's 10 people. So I make sure I take all of them. Like, no, no, nothing crazy like that. But I'm just saying, just as
yeah,
far as it's a self thing,
yeah,
if you want to call it a solo thing, I mean, we can change the word and make it better like we do everything else, but
yeah.
its core is still selfish and it's a positive form of selfish.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I think that's a shift for I think for most people to make in the sense of living sort of this really fast-paced society that we live in. It's like, always going to the next thing, always sort of doing the next thing, and never really slowing down to honor yourself, to care for yourself, to make time to, get a pedicure or manicure or just having a really good meal, right?
In front of my door, I have a doormat that I made and I have a word that I had copyrighted and currently processing in trademark. And that is don't be afraid to live. And it's in
Mm,
French.
mm,
And I think that is one important things to do. When I hear people say that I'm afraid to be selfish, it's a lot of times I think it's rooted in cultural beliefs.
mm-hmm.
It's rooted in, you know, things that we once taught what was selfish was and against and how we kind of made it a dirty word. And that has been my goal, especially this year. No matter what the second is, don't be afraid to live. Next week, I'm going to the Renaissance Fair. I don't know if you know what that
I've
is.
never been. I've always wanted to go. I've never been.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I just sent out some invites, ask friends to go if not. But you know,
Is this around you? Is this happening around you or?
it's actually in Texas, and so I just found out that the Renaissance Fair is actually a traveling thing, from what I was told. I had a friend who just went to Northern California, and he went attended there, and so I guess they're here, Texas. This is my first time, never went, but being open minded and being don't be afraid to just try new things. You know what I'm saying, and expand my horizon, that has been a good form of self-care. And I think a lot of people need to try that. Those things that you say, I've always wanted to do, or even the things that, that's even in proximity, whether it's just like, okay, hey, I want to talk to this lady. I want to talk to this girl. I want to, it's satisfying your inner thoughts for me, and your deepest desires. And I think that is a form of self-care, however way you look at it.
Yeah. I'm curious and to your comfort level, like, do you remember a moment or a place where you had this sort of insight of like, yeah, I'm gonna try to live to the fullest. Like again, to your comfort level, like when you sort of had that epiphany or that realization, like Yeah, no, I gotta live life and I gotta be able to treat myself and not be fearful of whatever comes or the fear of not knowing, right?
Aging, aging will do it to you. In a sense where, you realize you're getting older, even though I'm not in my 40s, I'm still, kind of young.
We're looking good.
Thank you. I'm trying. Hopefully this Ozempic, kick in and make me look even better. But aging and then realizing too that we all have an exit. And then realizing that a lot of times that, as long as you're not hurting nobody or doing anything illegal, it's okay. And what's really holding a lot of people back is sometimes I see their family members, um, putting these expectations, society putting their expectations on you. And I think that is I think probably one of the biggest things that made me wake up. And I think in that same capacity of another thing that was big is working.
Hmm.
Uh, Working in toxic environments. I think people think, once you get a certain level of education, degrees, and even finances, that is just like life is just automatically get better. The work stop, it doesn't, no matter where you are. I've clerked for judges. I've worked with friends who are doctors. I work with friends who work at call centers, and I'm like, they all saying the same shit that they're tired. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on. Am I allowed to curse on here?
You're good. You're good.
Okay, but they're all saying the same shit that they're tired. They're worn out, and then whether they get laid off, get fired, or just fine. A lot of them have that same regret, and my mom talks about a lot that growing up, that one of her biggest regrets was that she didn't, she traveled a lot and that she wished she could have spent more time with me. So, mom, I had a good life with my mom. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think she did anything wrong. But even now, as an adult, you don't understand things until you get older, until you start living it. And that was for me. It's that okay? I missed out on a lot of things because I dedicated so much to working and transitioning from law school to actual being an attorney, trying to take the bar, trying to move to another state, take another bar, all those different things. And it make you realize, what, Jacoby, in this little bit of time that you can fit in, do as much as you can.
Hmm.
Am I
Hmm.
making sense to you?
Yeah, no, and it's sort of challenging me, right? Because not that I'm really into astrology, but as a Capricorn, I'm all about reassurance. I'm all about stability. I'm all about not making decisions on the fly, and I'm like, why don't I do more vacations? Not saying like I travel to Canada, sometimes out west to California, but not on a regular basis. Like years could go by before I'm like, oh, let me go someplace else.
Now, I want to give you a caveat to that, and I want to make it perfect clear to who's ever listening, is that be responsible.
Hmm.
People sitting here saying, I saw a quote said, F job, F job, jobs going on vacation. Don't spend all your money on a vacation and you can't, pay your bills next month, or you have to, be evicted or do a GoFundMe. I'm not talking about that, but I'm saying things that are in your reasonable means that are still make you a responsible adult.
Mhm.
Do what you can to live out your best life. That is, I think, is the most important thing. And savings is important. And also, too, you don't have to go on a vacation every time somebody else posts that they're in Dubai or they're going on a trip. Dubai, New York will always be there. But do plan and try to do what you feel like you need. One thing me and my best friend do, we have Sunday fun days. And our Sunday fun days look a little bit different than everybody. What we will do is we will go on a day trip sometimes to a different place. So we're in Houston. We may drive to Lake Charles. I like casinos. We'll go to the casino, come back the same day. Or we may go to the Renaissance Fair, which is almost like an hour from Houston currently, and do things like that. And then we'll try restaurants, a new restaurant in a different part of the city. So those are things that I think is very reasonable that a lot of people can do and still
Hmm.
dare them to live out
Hmm.
their best life. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, I know this is your show, but I wanted to make sure I get this out because I said, you asked me to be about self-care. One of the two things that I feel like I've done recently that really has helped me, but one thing that I've always done was tap into therapy. And I think people look
Hmm.
at therapy as, there's something is wrong with you. Um, I went to a elementary school and a high school and middle school where, and it was a predominantly white. And I'm saying this as an African American, speaking to African American men specifically on this thing, uh, where both of my parents never, believed in therapy or things like that. But a lot of my classmates were, oh, we go to therapy all the time. And mom, and her dad, and the mom and dad got into a fight. They all went to therapy. Somebody was acting up at school. It was just a way. It was another medium, almost like a mediator in a
Yeah.
situation. And I found that, especially during my college years, even when I was in Vermont, therapy was probably one of the best things that I ever did for myself, and it found me a lot of relief. And, I love my therapist. I talked to her yesterday and we just have good talks. And sometimes things don't even have to be wrong, but it's just, giving me different perspectives. Um, and even, it's funny because I know you do what you do. And my therapist always say I challenge her perspectives on things and shift. And I think that has been really, really helpful. And I think a lot of people don't utilize therapy as much as they utilize the gym, books, and travel as a form of self-care. You get what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's what I say, how we categorize things. Again, back to our word selfish, we need to categorize therapy as kind of a duality thing where what it can be used as, kind of like a medical treatment, but also can be used as a form of recreation, self-care, love, and all those things. And that has been transformative for me. Excuse me. I'm coming down with a cold, so I'll just let you know that. uh, the other thing that I think is important too is I recently discovered is spa days.
Oh,
From
spa days? Yeah.
spa days, yes. A friend of mine, she bought me a facial. We went to a spa, and at first I'm like, I don't need no facial. I'm a man. This is kind of like some female stuff, whatever. And again, me having my own beliefs. Let me tell you that I'm going to make a facial my new daily routine, my new monthly routine. But just going to a spa, going to the quiet rooms, when I tell you I had so much peace that whole day and I slept so good like a baby that day. And then so if you can go to a spa, they have some Groupons. I know some of them, facials can run anywhere between, 80 and up. You can probably find some for 60 at a good spa. Do it. And I think it's the most under utilized thing when it comes to self-care.
Hmm. Hmm. And I've never done a spa.
You should.
I'm it's on my list of things to do. But it sounds very energizing. I think you mentioned something a moment ago about compassion, right? I think, uh, that idea of carving out space for yourself is a very compassionate act. And when you're in a compassionate space, you are re-energizing yourself. You are boasting up your ability to tackle
Right.
the world again, right?
Right.
Which I think not a lot of people get when we're talking about what does it mean to set boundaries? What does it mean to say no, I can't do that because I have other things and I need to carve out time for myself, right? Like it's a very compassionate act
Hmm.
when it comes to this idea about either going on vacation for yourself with a friend or going to the spa, which I love.
Right. And and when I hear people talk about boundaries, it's like, well, hey Cindy, can you help me? No, I cannot. Like, it doesn't have to be all dramatic, It's just, I'm unable at the time, you can give an explanation. You don't have to be, it don't have to be this whole kind of like confrontational thing, but for recently, like when I got back, I think it was yesterday before yesterday, even yesterday, I told them feeling sick. I just didn't pick up the phone. I
Mm,
text. And it wasn't nothing. I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong because I knew I wasn't in a good mental space. I'm sick. I'm laying in bed. I'm watching Power. I'm not, trying to, can't even watch my TV shows because when you're uncomfortable, you're
yeah,
sick, you just
yeah.
all together. And that was a form of compassion for me, is not exerting more energy than I wanted to. I was out
Mm,
of breath when I was talking, all these different things. So yeah.
mhm, mm. Yeah, no, I think the journey of working and being adulting.
Hmm.
I think the energy of being an adult is really challenging. And when you get sick and tell yourself, "Oh no, I gotta power through," like why
Hmm.
would you do that to yourself? You're only causing more hurt and more harm. when you're not listening to your body in the sense of,
Right.
because I've had those moments where, like I do a full like sort of like eight to four,
Hmm.
I'm meeting with folks on a daily basis, and as you know, and as our listeners know, I'm a therapist, and a wellness facilitator, and so like that takes a lot of energy, and so if I'm giving and holding space for other people, sometimes I don't even have enough for myself at the end of the day, and so sort of turning on either a podcast
Right.
or taking a extra long hot shower, or maybe like painting my nails or cutting my nails, or
Right.
something that's sort of like very centered on the self, or going for a walk, whatever that is, but listening to your body and listening to what's going on internally. Like, yeah, I've had moments where like folks are called and I'm like, do I have the energy to talk right now? Because I've been talking for about at least 10
Right.
hours, right? And so I like that idea of that you're giving yourself permission to set that boundary.
Hmm. And I think a lot of those things too with boundaries, again, to go back, and I'll use the word culture because people don't underestimate how culture really shapes our society. Um, and even one thing I always tell my coworkers, and one thing I learned in law school is too, when you don't say anything, you create a culture. But also, if you don't do anything, you continue that culture.
Mm,
Cultural shifts are shifted by people saying and doing. And
mm,
a lot of times, like I feel like I had family members who struggle with boundary issues. And and I'm like, okay, it's okay. Just say you can't do it. You're exhausted. You know what I'm saying? And when they practice it, they was like, thank you, Jacoby, for helping me so much. I'm like, it's not that hard, but they have been, normalized. And I can't think of the word right now, but they have been taught that, you should, give your last or exert yourself, and almost people pleasing a lot of times, and it ends up being self-sabotage. One thing that stuck out to me just listening to you is I think a lot of people a lot of times don't ask the question, what do you need?
ooh,
Asking yourself, what do you
mhm,
need in this moment? And that could be a whole variety of things right now. I like right now, I currently feel like I need just a day of relaxation. I need a mentor in something. Sometimes I need a guide. Like a lot of times when it comes, that's a form of self-care. A lot of times people just don't realize that, asking is self-care because you want the help that you need. You know what I'm saying? You're seeking the help that you need, and somebody,
mhm.
and I just think a lot of times we don't focus on that enough. When I have kids, that's something I'm going to always ask them, what do they need? And them to also be self-aware of what they need so they can be able to seek it and learn how to seek it.
Mm, mm. And that's a huge insight, coping mechanism. What's
Mhm.
the word I'm looking for? What do you need? That's very compassionate. I feel like it's a thing where a lot of people aren't compassionate with themselves or kind with themselves, or being
Mhm.
soft with themselves, right? Because I think that's being really soft with yourself is tough. I know for me, it's really difficult to be, oh, you've been going to trainings because these past couple of months I was in Florida for a training, and then I was in Connecticut for another training, and then I was like up north of Vermont for a train. So it's like maybe like every other weekend I was going somewhere, and then just I think just now I'm realizing like, wow, I've been on the go, 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 go. And I haven't paused to say, what do I need right now? Right? Like,
Mhm. Do you need a break from? Do you need to tell your job that, hey, can I get one day off, or can we? I have a friend who travels religiously. She works for a major tech company. She has a big job with them. And she said, you know what? I can't, I need a day before y'all send me out to a thing the same morning to work an event and, and talk to people. Um, she needs a day. And they did it. I need a certain type of hotel. They accommodated. When she gets back, she may say she needs a day off. And that has helped her tremendously, and I'm trying to get my parents to kind of have that mentality, but again, they grow up in a kind of an older generation where, you go, you work yourself to death, and it's not.
literally, literally.
And
My dad had a heart attack, and
sorry.
and at this time he was sort of semi-retired, and he could have retired fully, but he just kept on working, right?
Mm,
Like up to like 75. I'm like,
right.
what are you doing? Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think it's a and again, there's good values and good like morals aspects in that kind of dedication, but it takes energy,
It does.
I think as you're saying, right? And if you don't have any energy left for yourself, oof.
It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. Um, and I think too, these perspectives that I had, didn't just come out of nowhere. It came, from having those experiences of, okay, you know what, putting myself in new spaces, traveling, getting different perspectives, I went to San Francisco, and I'm going to be honest with you, I wasn't a fan of San Francisco, but when I got back, I laid in my room, I was thinking about it. I was thankful for going to San Francisco because it gave me a different perspective on life. I know what I want and what I don't want. I travel a lot solo. And to be honest with you, and I was telling my best friend last night, I think this was the first time where I realized that I don't like solo travel as much as, you know, society said do this whole solo travel, things like that. I met with some friends, I met with a couple of people, and I realized like Jacoby, you are a social person. You like being around people. So that level of self-discovery, I think too, and also putting yourself in other places can kind of give you a different perspective on like how life is and what is self-care. And saying, now for me, my new self-care is okay, you know what, Jacoby, when you go somewhere for travel, maybe now look into group travel groups. Maybe now looking into, what I'm saying, making sure you have friends in those destinations, and also choosing a city that, fits exactly what do you like. New York City is still one of my favorite cities. New Orleans and New York City is still my favorite city, and Montreal, those three.
Ooh, I love Montreal. My sister lives in
Now
Montreal.
that's a place I can go because I can't speak the language. So that's another, it makes sense.
Me either, me either.
I can't speak a lick of French, and I got it in front of my door. But that's another place that I can go. And I've always feel loved and welcome and things there, those three cities.
So I'm curious about like when you have traveled, have you ever been, again, you don't have to go into any details. Have you ever been a place where you just did not like or had an experience in a hotel or a city that just was just like, oh, this is a one-time event. I got this off my to-do list. I'll be fine never doing that again.
I think of three cities that come to mind. That was Baltimore, San Francisco, and I would say Detroit, but I heard Detroit's changing. But Baltimore, and I was there right before the pandemic, and I heard it was even worse afterwards. It was just not a city that I thought it would be. I don't know if you ever been to Baltimore before.
No.
It was is it's just under a lot of economic pressure right now, and I think that's one of those things that it's a sensitive topic, but I didn't enjoy Baltimore. Maybe if I would have ate the crab cakes, I probably would have loved it, but I didn't. San Francisco was cool, but I went to Oakland as well, and I was going to make a TikTok video about San Francisco, but I was going to wait till after the election because I don't want nobody to politicize the video or what I had to say. But one thing I will say, San Francisco got some work. I've never seen a level of poverty and drug use. And Baltimore is bad, but widespread. And everybody can sit up in here and say, well, all of San Francisco was not like that. Well, you know what? Usually you say that when 85% of the city looks good, but 15% of the city, was good, and 85% of the city was the other,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
part the undesirable for me.
yeah.
It was expensive, and it just felt chaotic. I told my friend, I want to keep this thing positive, but I said, the only thing that city is missing is a casino, and that'd be modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. But other than that, it was, but I'm praying that it changed, and hopefully I'll be able to go back, for an event or maybe something money related, but you know,
I heard you mention that you travel with people, and I do a lot of stuff by myself. And when I do travel, I do a lot of travel, and when I travel, I'm usually going and go see somebody, in that either city or town. Um, have you ever traveled with somebody who's just like you just did not, again, you don't have to go into detail. You just it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, why did I think this was a good idea to travel with you? Has that ever?
Well, yeah, well, I think too, as you get older, sometimes your travel style has changed. And like I say, solo was something that I loved doing probably like 4 years ago. But now that I'm getting a little older, um, and when I started meeting people, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to appreciate the company. Like the trip was fine. Like, I went all the great places, Golden Gate Bridge or whatever. But then when I met up with my friends, I had a blast. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, this took this trip from a good 6, 7 to a damn 10, And maybe if I would, incorporate that. But I think it's important to know who to travel with and know your travel style. And my neighbor, you know, she's I forgot what she does, but she travels a lot and she's been to like 50 countries. And she always talks about that. And she says that one thing she makes sure she do is that she tell her friends that when she travels, this is how I operate. I get up at 8 a.m. We're going here, 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 and that's how it's going to be. You know what I mean? And then I got some friends that be like, no, they want to feel like a vacation. And what's funny about that is I went to Montreal with a group of people. Um, it was some folks from law school. And Montreal is beautiful. You got the old city, all that stuff over there. These almost says some these individuals got up, got up at 12 o'clock, you know what I'm saying? Left the house because we were staying at Airbnb at 1 o'clock. Didn't want to go nowhere but one place. And by every time everything was gone, it was nighttime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That annoyed me. And so I think that is important too to really know, and that works for some people. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm nervous. I only have one friend that I travel with, and it's only because like we basically grew up together, and so we're very familiar with each other. And even when we get to a point where we're like, oh, I can't stand you, like, and so we're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm gonna go do my thing. Like I think P Town was the last time
Okay.
me and this friend
That's
went.
in Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Where is
Yeah,
that?
Massachusetts. It's sort of like at the end of Massachusetts at that little
Okay.
little hook piece.
Okay.
And so P-Town is awesome.
Mhm.
But there's just a lot to do.
Right.
It's sort of like a gay mecca kind of
Okay.
here. Lots of, various um events that happens each weekend or each week, like Bear Week
Okay.
or Lesbian Week or Family Week,
Right.
so there's always like a leather week, there's always something that's happening. Um,
Okay.
and so I like traveling with her. And so she's the only person that I've ever thought, like, I don't even want to travel with my sister or my brother or like I've always traveled by myself. And so the idea of traveling with anyone but this particular friend makes me a little nervous. And so recently I've been thinking about going to Brazil, traveling to Brazil.
I would love to go to Brazil.
You've been to Brazil?
No, I would love to go.
Oh my gosh. So I'm looking at and then the more I look into because this would be like the biggest trip I've ever done, right? Like
Okay.
I've only been in the States and maybe like I've been to the Dominican Republic, I've been to Haiti, and so like this is gonna be like the if I follow through because I'm like looking at plane tickets and I'm looking
I
at
would go to Brazil by myself according to what I've been seeing on the internet lately. You know what I'm saying? Excuse my ignorance, for anybody, but I feel like certain places you don't go by yourself.
oh yes, yeah, definitely, yeah. Um, And so I'm nervous about making this trip. And
Right.
I'm thinking like you, like this is a big trip and maybe I should have somebody to go with me. One, I don't speak the language and that makes me nervous. Two, like I have like a pay as you go phone kind of thing because I have
Okay.
so I don't have like a traditional like
Okay.
I have a smartphone but it doesn't have like like an iPhone or it doesn't have like
Right. Right.
those actual services. So if I travel abroad, like it's just gonna be a really nice paperweight. And so that makes me nervous about not having, because sometimes phones, like you could have like a language translator in there. All you need is like the internet to be able to use the phone. And so I want to make the trip and I know and it goes back to what you said about like, life is worth living. Like why wait?
Still
And
be
so it's
smart.
like, huh?
Still be smart.
Right. And so like, yeah. And so I'm trying to plan this And I'm realizing like I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with the planning. I'm feeling like where do I go? And like oh, if I choose this place, is that going to be a scam? Am I going to be scammed out of money? Or if I go with a tourist company, is it if I go to a tourist company and it's just me? And so it's like all of these sort of like fears and
Right, right.
apprehensions and like lack of knowledge, right? But again, I think it's trying to make that commitment and sticking with it and just trusting.
Mhm.
And so
So can I say something?
yeah, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So it's so interesting you say that. So as someone who recently said, I mean, and when I say I want to travel with other people, maybe like one other person, maybe, that's it. If we have our own rule, we have our own time, whatever. Um, I think it is important to make sure that you do what you're comfortable with. One thing that I always do as a solo travel, because let's be real, you can do, you can YOLO all you want, there's still real dangers of being by yourself and being in
Right.
unfamiliar
Right.
territories.
Right.
So what I do is I always make sure that I either book a and it makes you feel less lonely, is I book a tour, like through Viators. That's a TripAdvisor, American country,
Oh, okay.
American company, and they have their own standards. And a lot of times they have like it's an 8 hour tour, and they have the tour planned from 8 a.m. all the way to, so you're always busy. That is one thing I do. Another thing that I do is I have an air tag. I
Oh,
put an
what?
air tag.
Hmm.
I put an air tag somewhere on my body where I know that if something happened, because a lot of times if you have a phone, people are going to just take your phone and think, okay, there's no trace of it. No, it may be in my sock. It may be somewhere else that you can think, and it's connected to my friends in case something goes wrong.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then my location is shared because even if I lose my phone, you still see where Jacoby is at.
Right.
Utilize the government, contact the embassy, let them know that you're in town. Those are actual resources that people underestimate. I'm on part of Black travel movement. It's on Facebook. Look at the comments, look at the reviews, people who actually experience, but even these subgroups, if you're a woman, a Black woman, join a Black women's travel group. If you're a gay man, go into a gay travel group. If you are whatever you may be, plus size, whatever, there are groups for everybody who can share their experience. And I think that is important too. How we're perceived in the world matters, how we're treated, no matter where we go, depending on who you are, what you look like, money, all those things. And so I look at those before I go places and I make decisions off of, okay, what, he's like me, he's Black, they had, he's this type of finances, he stayed at this accommodation, here's his experience. And that's what I would do. Also, when I was in San Francisco, I had took a walk down the street through the Tenderloin, which is like all I can just say, if you just don't go. And there was a couple of places in San Francisco that was outside of Tenderloin that I just didn't feel comfortable. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna Uber everywhere I go. At that point, I no longer walked. I Ubered everywhere because I didn't feel comfortable with. And that's making decisions that you feel comfortable with. There was times I said, you know what? I'm gonna stay in my hotel because I did not feel like going out. I did not feel comfortable
Hmm.
out there. And that's what I think you will have to do when you travel to places like Brazil or places that are unfamiliar to you. Because as soon as you land in Brazil, if you don't feel well, leave. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to do that. And
Yeah.
that's a stigma for people saying that I don't feel comfortable. And
Yeah.
it's so funny because I had a conversation with another woman um last week, and she was talking about going to Colombia, and she said several of her friends talked about how they got robbed, and she wants to go. And I just said, why put yourself under that stress? If you're that worried about going to a destination, choose another destination instead of putting yourself that added additional anxiety about, something that could possibly may not ever happen, but may happen. If it's gonna cause you that much, just don't go.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I,
what
I I like the idea about the going through a travel agent or
travel groups.
travel groups. Yeah, I think that's what you said. Travel going through the travel
Both.
group. Oh yeah, both. And yeah, and there's a part of me that's like, does
Ooh.
does that mean like I don't know what it means or what I'm trying to say, but it's just like this idea.
Feel the fear and do it anyway, but just be smart. A friend of
Right.
mine,
Well, I guess I'm thinking like other people seeing me there by myself if I'm part of like a travel group and like and I know this is completely like my anxiety and like my insecurities. But just
That
that,
stigma is
yeah,
that cultural stigma
yeah,
of the person of being by
yeah,
themselves.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Uh,
what I what I will say with you on that one, I have a friend who lives in New York, and she always travels. And I said, "How are you traveling? How you know all these people?" She said, "I don't know these people. I just joined travel groups." And she ended
mm,
up developing friendships, and she going because it's safety in numbers. She went to I think we call it Croatia. She went there. She's been everywhere. And so those are real popular right now. There's, not only are you with an American group, you're in a travel group with other people who are solo travelers just like you and
mhm.
feel, worry about their safety. That's another thing too. And even when I was on a tour, when I was in San Francisco, half of those people were also solo travelers.
Oh,
You know, look up videos too online on how to feel less lonely when you travel.
mm,
I don't know about in Brazil, but keep your earplugs and headphones on when I travel because you listen to music, you listen to podcasts, you're enjoying. It doesn't feel like that. It's just like when you're at the gym, you don't feel alone, even though you are technically alone
yeah,
by same concept.
yeah, yeah. What about cruises? Have you ever done any cruises? Like
Yeah.
what has been your experience with cruises?
So I've been going on cruises since I was a little boy.
Oh,
I
I'm
grew
so
up in Florida.
jealous.
I've been I grew up in Florida. My parents love cruises. I've been on every cruise except the Virgin cruise, which is my next big one that I want to do. Virgin is the new adults only cruise, um, luxury cruise, things like that. At first, I didn't like them. I liked them when I was younger, and then I kind of grew out of them because I was just like, I've done it 1,000 times. Now I feel like I need one, and I like them. I think especially Carnival. I know Carnival gets a bad reputation. I feel like Carnival is a fun ship. I feel like Carnival has great food, and the people are more fun. You know what I'm saying? Let's be real. The Spirit Airline
Well,
folks
just the
are
name of
more
it,
fun.
Carnival, just the name of it, right?
Yeah, like there's talk people call it a spirit of the seas, but let's be real, people on Spirit are a little bit more festive than the ones that fly American Airlines and Delta. I traveled on Royal Caribbean. The rooms are nice and clean. But I was bored out of my mind on those. And
Oh,
again,
really?
it didn't fit my travel style. Royal Caribbean, from my experience, is more people who want to do yoga, active, those type of Zen. That's not me. I like casinos. I like food. I like, party atmosphere. I like good comedy shows, stuff like that. So you got to really know what your style is.
Yeah.
But I love cruises. I think they're a good way, an affordable way to see multiple destinations in one and save a lot of money.
Mm,
Mhm.
mm, nice. So we're gonna get ready to end.
Oh, I can stay
Um,
up there all day.
and I could listen all day because you sort of like sparked my interest about diving back into this idea about maybe going traveling to Brazil or maybe looking into a cruise because that's been also in the back of my mind thinking about a cruise and making that step because you're right, like this is the stage that we get, right? Like who knows what's going to happen later, who knows what's going to happen next year, there might be another pandemic, right? So I think that idea of like, yeah, save up, plan, talk to people, and I might reach out to you again and ask for some
Of
advice.
course. When
on
we
s-
get off, I'm actually going to send you a couple of travel groups.
oh,
The
good.
ones that I've been seeing on TikTok. Do you ever use TikTok?
Mm-mm,
My
no.
mother put me on TikTok. I know, right? When during the pandemic, and she's my favorite travel person. Actually, me and my mother, we kind of got the same travel style. We always have a good time. We always go to New York together. That is one of my favorite people. But um, I was going to send you some and just pretty much, to kind of lessen, I guess your anxiety about it. But go on TikTok and look up solo travel. Look up destinations. Put whatever subgroup or whatever identifiers that you feel or things that you like. You mentioned you like nature, you like walking. There's probably walking clubs that walk through maybe the mountains of in Chile or some shit like that.
Mhm.
There's something for everybody.
Yeah,
So that's what I would do, and it will definitely let you see. I will say also be careful and take that information with a grain of salt because there's some places that I went to and I'm like, y'all told me this X, Y, and Z, and it wasn't what
right.
it it created more fear than what it was than me actually being there. Chicago.
Right.
Had I not been in Chicago myself, I would have thought I was going to get shot in the street instantly. you know, and I had one of the greatest times when I went to Chicago by myself.
And I know you've given us
That's
some,
okay.
yeah. I know you sort of given us some nuggets of information on how to travel. And so I usually like to end with folks giving sort of advice or their tactics on traveling, right? Or like what are two or three things, that you've learned that for the most part for you works on a solid basis that you could give advice to folks to, if they're thinking about like starting or like me, right? Like I'm, like I'm not much for traveling, but when I do, it's really like weekend, like either in Massachusetts or down to Jersey or New York. So
So I'm glad you said that because this is one that I never hear nobody talk about, but it never failed me. Is before I book a hotel, I don't care how cheap it is or how good, 5 star, four, whatever it is, I always call the front desk and I always ask questions. And depending on how they respond to me on that line, will let me know what type of customer service that I'm
ooh,
going to receive at that hotel. It
ooh,
never failed me. I call down there, I ask a question, no, or just well, we do that, and it's like, I'm not dealing with Shaniqua down at the down at such and such. I'm not dealing with Rude Billy at X, Y, and Z, and that never had felt me. Uh, and I told it to my friends who travel a lot for work, and it also worked for them too. Ask questions, about credit card fees and holds and things like that. And a lot of times when I travel to New York, I usually travel for more than a week. And it was one hotel that I booked. Usually sometimes they say $50 a day for a incidental holding fee, whatever you guys want to call it. They wanted the actual, they wanted $200 a day plus the cost of the whole trip. Now think about it. If I'm staying there for a week in New York City in a hotel, you're talking about at minimum about $3,000 credit card hold. And I think a lot of people don't, think about that before they go. Booking.com and booking through packages save you a lot of money. So I use booking.com and I always put free cancellation. And what I would do is I would say, okay, I said, I think maybe in June, I may want to go to London. Okay. So I would book now, reserve the hotel for 5 days in London. Okay. And I will alter it the closer that the days go. That way I have secured the hotel that's $400 a night for now 150 or 200 because it was so far in advance
yeah,
and it saved me money. Okay, fine. If I don't use booking, I don't have the money in or something like comes up, I go to Orbitz or I go to Expedia or even these airlines and I buy the packages where if you buy the ticket alone from New York, I mean from Vermont to Texas, it may be $800. But if before that, but if I'm staying there for 4 days, the hotel is now $1,000. You put that's 1,800. But if I book it together, I may just get charged just the price of the hotel. I mean, of the ticket, $800, and it somehow magically be $900, but you just saved a whole $1,000. You get what I'm saying? It's cheaper, and I
yeah.
think people underutilize that. The
The,
last,
the, the package piece, right?
yes, and maybe I'm so sorry if I'm being unclear. The packages save you a lot of money.
Yeah,
It's cheaper than booking things separately.
yeah,
It has always been that way. If you cannot do the other method of just booking ahead of time and free cancellation and changing an alternate, that's what I would do.
yeah.
I don't book any other way.
Okay.
I went to Miami for 4 days. From Houston to Miami, my trip was $800. That included the flight, and it was a 5 star hotel. But because I booked it through a package, when I tried to do it separately, it went up to almost $1,500. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's why I do it that way. I think the last thing is I'm a strong believer in tours. It saves you time and it saves you money because even when I go on those city tours on the first day, I may see some things, I may hear some things. My tour guide mentioned, well, you should go such and such here. I went there. Don't eat. The locals really, eat here. They don't really eat there. And I think it's really helpful because you'll spend a lot of money and time trying to walk to Chinatown, going back and forth to the Golden Gate Bridge or the Empire State, through Ubers and subway transits, and you can just literally say get it all done for $60 on a tour, and
Hmm.
then go back to anything that you want to do. And one thing that has been helpful for me is making friends with flight attendants, who
Ooh.
also has told me a lot of ways to save money. Uh, I don't use Groupon, but a lot of them use Groupons when they go places. One of them also told me that, and this was kind of weird for me because I never done it, but I'm going to try it. Is they use those hop on and hop off buses. They buy like the 2 day passes. So what they do is to save money on Uber instead of in places that's like $30 every time you get in the car. The hop on tour maybe $40, but it's all these destinations that are close to you, and they just they get off the bus and they'll just walk to wherever they need to go, and then they go back to the hop on bus, because the hop on bus comes like I think from understanding like every 15 or 20 minutes, just like
Mm,
a regular city bus. And they said that saved a lot of money that way. And
mm.
they have different tricks and things that they done when they go out of town in certain cities. Flight attendants been everywhere. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're
mhm.
sort of like the gurus of traveling.
They really are. They really are. And I love them. And I think they're a great travel agents, in my opinion.
Well, I'm gonna get all that information. I'm gonna put it down below for other folks if they want some, traveling tips or sort of places to sort of start their traveling agenda. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time
Thank you.
and chit-chatting with me and the folks out there and sort of like this idea of self-care in traveling, right? Because that is self-care,
Right.
making
And
time for yourself.
thank you so much for having me. This is probably one of the best things I've done this week. Something that I actually, somebody I actually like speaking to, and it's something a topic that I actually like talking about. So thank you for having me for that. And it's not law. So that's the good thing about it.
Okay. Okay, folks, I will see you next time.
Okay, well, until we meet again. See you.